Shadowfax, Lord of Horses. Now here's the greatest Lord of the Rings right here, dude, the legendary steed, Shadowfax. Now if there's one thing I've learned through my roughly 63 years of life, it's that girls love horses, dude. I don't know what it is. You can show a girl of any age a picture of a horse and there's some primal atavistic reaction to want to take care of it or ride it or something. I don't know, man. Horses always look like big old dinosaurs to me, dude. I mean, they're massive. They're huge. Couldn't a horse just kick a hole in your sternum if they took it into their heads, dude? They're powerful as heck, dude. Look at those legs. Big old thighs, dude. I feel like a horse could just probably bite your hand off if it wanted to. Just reach down, bite off your finger. I saw a horse trample a guy at a racetrack one time. Maybe that traumatized me. Anyway, that's enough for me with the horses, dude. So listen, man, if you enjoy Horse Talk, the new podcast from Better Commander and Nikki G, then hey, listen, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave me a smoke signal, you know what I mean? Ding dog ditch my house, I guess, whatever works, buddy. If you want to support the channel, help keep me so caffeinated that I hallucinate, and buy me a coffee at the link in the description. Alright, let's read this card. We got Shadowfax, Lord of Horses. 3 red and a white for a legendary creature horse. It's a 4/4. Horses you control have haste. Oh, that's pretty nice. Whenever Shadowfax, Lord of Horses attacks, you may put a creature card with lesser power from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Alright, listen, I want to highlight the art here because first off, take a gander at that beautiful horse, dude. Reminds me of the Rankin Bass classic, The Last Unicorn. You ever see this movie? It's a movie where a lady who's a unicorn gets chased by an allegory of her first period, a red bull, and literally turns into a woman. You should really see it, dude, because guess what? It's good. We'll discuss it on episode 3 of Horse Talk. Anyways, man, I really dig the art on this thing. Very fantastical. You can plainly tell that this is a true Lord of the Horses. I hate to break it to you, though. There aren't enough horses to make a good use of that first ability. It has haste, I guess that's enough. Now that second ability, however, is incredibly strong for an uncommon, and you get immediate use out of it as long as it gets to attack and somebody doesn't remove it before combat. The cards that come in tapped and attacking don't trigger attack abilities or on attack abilities, and abilities that trigger at the beginning of combat, so there's a very distinct flavor to this deck. I would say it has a horse flavor to it. Now speaking of which, there are exactly 2 horses I slapped in there. You got Kelith, Sunmane Familiar, 1 and a white for a legendary creature horse. It's a 1/1. Whenever a commander you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it as partner. She chooses her riders carefully and bears them to glory in battle after battle. So you can have Shadowfax ride Kelith, and not in a barnyard kind of way. I'm not trying to you, Kelith. I'm trying to ride you. Sorry, Gandalf's gonna break in to give his 2 cents in this video, dude. What can you do? And then we put in the old Crested Sunmare, 3 white for a creature horse. It's a 5/5. Other horses you control have indestructible. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, create a 5/5 white horse creature token. You can tell this guy and Shadowfax are best buddies, right? And I don't have a lot of lifelink synergies in this particular version of a budget deck, but giving your commander indestructible is too good. That's it, dude. That's the horses. So what else do we want to do in this deck? Well, we're leaning on that second ability, and it cares about the power of Shadowfax, so we want to include creatures that will make him bigger and augment his combat capabilities. I put together a budget deck and leaned on creatures to do just that. You also want to trigger that second ability as much as possible, so extra combats are your friend. This is a classic Boros attack a lot deck, like the olden days before equipment was all Boros did. Our commander is also a sick value engine, so sometimes the creatures we want to put in with his second ability can help protect him, and those with static abilities are best. So in this particular deck, I included a +1/+1 counter sub-theme, and there are about 16 cards that care about that. You could definitely lean more heavily into counters, and it's one way to get that power of Shadowfax up. So cards like Lion Sash, dude, listen, such a cool card. Little graveyard hate that can be equipped for a bigger commander. This can be activated at instant speed just to eliminate your opponent's key cards in their graveyard. Then we also have Thundering Raiju. 2 red for a creature spirit. It's a 3/3 with haste. Whenever this thing attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then Thundering Raiju deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control other than Thundering Raiju. This can get us little incidental damage and get a counter on our other creatures. Abzan Falconer, 2 and a white for a creature human soldier. It's a 2/3, has Outlast for a white. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. This art throws me off a little bit. Like, how big is that bird in the background, dude? At a certain point, it would just eat the dude, I think. Anyways, not 100% sold on this, but if we get a counter on Shadowfax, he's upgraded to a Pegasus, dude. That's a horse with wings, brother. Then you got Felidar Retreat. Great card, goofy art, dude. Look at that cat right in the foreground there. That is the dumbest looking cat I've ever seen in my life, brother. But I want to rename this to Horse Retreat. This is just a classic landfall power card in a combat focused deck. Look at this sweet angel, dude. She's just a backup dancer for Beyonce. You got Beyonce Bringer Valkyrie, 3 white for a creature angel warrior. It's a 4/4 with backup 1. Has flying first strike and lifelink. Her blades are twin beacons, calling the worthy to glory and the wretched to despair. Wretched to despair. Listen, I feel a little singled out by that. Alright, I'm pretty wretched on most days. Alright, so besides counters, what are some ways to get our guy bigger? We got the old Balefire leads, dude. He's just a ghost hiding in some rocks. It's 2 generic mana and then a 3 hybrid Boros mana for a creature Spirit Horror. It's a 2/4. Other red creatures you control get +1/+1. Other white creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a red spell, this guy deals 3 damage to target player or planeswalker. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3 life. This is very solid in this deck, and before you ask, from the rulings, the abilities are separate and cumulative. If another creature you control is both of the listed colors, it will get a total of +2/+2. And I'm a big fan of this card, the Heraldic Banner, 3 generic mana for an artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+0. Add 1 mana of the chosen color. You can choose red or white depending on what you got in your hand. This is a free roll mana rock that gets our commander bigger, dude. Big fan of this card in budget decks. Then you got Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. 2 red and a white for a legendary creature Angel. It's a 2/5 with flying, has Mentor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1 target creature you control. Until end of turn, that creature gets +2/+0, gains Trample if it's red, and gains Vigilance if it's white. Sweet little combat boost with that whack Mentor ability that's not really going to come into play in this deck, but it gives our Horse Lord Trample and Vigilance. If it comes out tapped and attacking with the Horse Lord's second ability, you don't get to do all that turn, but the abilities are good nonetheless, and it curves nicely in the Shadowfax. Then you got Blade Historian. It's 4 hybrid Boros mana for a creature, human cleric. It's a 2/3. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. So you see, the reckless battle strategy of the Catherine Orcs was effective, but ultimately proved to be a double-edged sword, as did their double-edged swords. The heck's this guy talking about, dude? Listen, I don't care. If we put him out tapped and attacking, all of our attacking creatures have a double strike, buddy. Oh man, how about these Odricks? They're just handsome old men, dude. Not that new Twilight Saga Odric that cares about blood tokens or some nonsense. We got the good old-fashioned combat monsters that let us direct combat the way we want it to go. Classic staples in Boros combat decks. Now listen, we want to mess up combat for our opponents too, and there are a couple creatures that are great to cheat out with our commander. You got Blinding Angel. You ever see this card before? 3 white for a creature Angel. It's a 2/4 with flying. Whenever Blinding Angel deals combat damage to a player, that player skips their next combat phase. Folks, this is what the art used to look like in the old days of Magic. It was beautifully painted and none of this digital nonsense. Love this card. You can lock somebody out of combat if it connects. Look at this guy's Baloth Baratil. Entertainers. 4 and a red for a legendary creature, Elf Shaman. It's a 2/5. Creatures your opponents control with power less than Baloth Baratil's power are goaded. Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you create a treasure token. This guy is doing his best Chris Angel Mind Freak impression. He looks like he's just welcoming you to the show. And he can clear the board of mana dorks and utility creatures. We can make this thing a little bigger in this deck, and this throws a bigger monkey wrench into our opponent's plans for combat. Alright, so we messed up our opponent's combats, and now we want extra combats. So you got the Aki Battle Squad out there, goes great with our counters theme and some of the equipment we have in here, and we got Karlach, dude, just a solid value engine all around. But how about this beast, dude, the Bloodthirster. 5 and a red for a creature demon. It's a 6/6 with flying and trample. Whenever Bloodthirster deals combat damage to a player, untap it. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. Bloodthirster can't attack a player that has already attacked this turn. I just love this card. It doesn't help us in this deck unless we have some way to untap Shadowfax, like Patriarch Seal, which is also in here. But it does trigger all of our at the beginning of combat effects and stuff that triggers on attack. Just a diesel card all around. There are about 9 cards that give us extra combat, so check out the deck list. But the more Shadowfax attacks, the better the value we can generate. Now we also want some protection pieces, like Bastion Protector, 2 and a white for a creature human soldier. It's a 3/3. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. As long as I stand, so will your cause, unless I catch you texting Jennifer. This is probably the best of the bunch, acting as a power buff and a protection piece. We also have little combat tricky tricks like take up the shield and some of these types of effects. These round out our ability to protect our commander and embiggen them at the same time. Now listen, I have some pet cards that I think are better than they really are, right? I don't live in a perfectly hermetic vacuum where all cards are evaluated strictly on their comparative merits, okay? Sometimes I just like a card and I don't know why. And one of those cards is the old Dragon Mage. 5 red for a creature, Dragon Wizard. It's a 5/5 with flying. Whenever this guy deals combat damage to a player, each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. So this is only power 5. So if we're buffing our commander, we can sneak this out after we empty our hand and draw a new grip every turn. In any deck where we can cheat this out, it's a great card to consider. Alright, so how about some non-budget recommendations? Because you know you guys are going out there and buying scratch-offs all day and you're winning $10,000 but probably winning nothing. You got Balefire Dragon, dude. This is an amazing card. It could be a real blowout, but it's like $30. You also have Ancient Copper Dragon. This thing is like $50 for the derpiest version with the dang Dungeons and Dragons art, but it's pretty rad if you can cheat it out. You also have the old Ancient Gold Buddy. Not quite as derpy, but is around $10. Probably pretty tough to cheat out. Shadowfax would need 8 power. You also have Hellkite Tyrant, dude. Just get all the artifacts. How about Archangel Abyssin, dude, and her alter ego, the Purifier. These are pretty great to cheat out, giving an indestructible buff on ETB. Probably one of the best non-budget includes would be Eroa's God of Victory. 2 red and a white for a legendary enchantment creature. It's a god. It's a 7/4 with indestructible. As long as your devotion to red and white is less than 7, Eroas is not a creature. Creatures you control have menace and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. So this is coming in at about $14. This beast is the ultimate combat augmenter and is a classic for Boros attack stacks. Look at this guy, he's just being a celestial centaur out there. So listen man, you can check out the deck list if you want, but Shadowfax is generically very powerful, and even this $80 deck I threw together plays really smoothly. Could use a bit more draw, but that's about it. I would take this to a game night and do fine in mid-power pods or budget games, dude, for sure. So if you want to join us for the next episode of Horse Talk, then subscribe to the channel. We'll get our horses ready to ride, brother. Let this be the hour when we draw swords together. Fell deeds awake. Now for wrath, now for ruin, and the Red Dawn. Sneaky G signing off.